Welcome to the Digital Handshake. I'm your host, Scott Jorgensen. And here on this podcast is where we make your digital first impression your strongest asset. Well, today we're joined by one of the world's leading plastic surgeons, the #1 rated breast plastic surgeon in the country by Newsweek here in 2025, Dr. William Adams Jr.
Scott, awesome to be on the Digital Handshake.
Well, put it there, Bill. Time for us to shake hands. Fantastic.
That's a real handshake.
That's a real handshake. So here's what's fun. I've known Bill for probably more than 20 years, going all the way back to when we launched the silicone breast implant at Allergan, Natrel.
Mm-hmm.
Bill served on the Allergan Executive Council there with a number of other leading thought leaders in plastic surgery. And it was my first opportunity to meet Bill, get to know him, work together side by side, and we did some fantastic programs, marketing, advisory, education, you name it. And you know what's exciting about now working with Bill here at PSC is your passion for video content and production, right? So I think it would be fun for the audience to learn a little bit about the genesis of how Media PSC and the Plastic Surgery Channel came about and sort of your passion around video content and digital marketing.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I would say the genesis was just that I love everything technical. You know, if I wasn't a surgeon, I would be like an IT guy, you know, but I work on like multiple computers. I do different things. And I was also really into video editing. And so I'd been doing that. As that evolved, we had this is actually well before the Plastic Surgery Channel ever started in 2010. But we had an idea, a friend of mine and I, a guy I trained with, had an idea that we wanted to have a 24-hour network, like the Food Channel, like the Plastic Surgery Channel and Plastic Surgery Network. We actually looked into this. It was 10 years before that in 2000. And what we found was that if you were going to do that, especially at the time, you needed actually quite a bit of money just to start something like that. Because what you had to do is, in order to get a 24-hour, you know, one of these networks is not going to put you on for 24 hours, or DirecTV is not going to put you on for 24 hours until you prove that you know, good option to do that. And so you'd have to pitch your concept to, say, Bravo or some station, and they would do some pilots with you. And if that grew, you know, you might be able to move on to that. But it just was really financially prohibitive. And at the time, you know, we were young in our practice, probably didn't have the time or bandwidth to do that. So it just kind of incubated for a while. And it was funny because we actually approached our society, the American Society of Plastic Surgeons, talked to the president at the time and said, hey, you know, we thought of this. I think it's going to be a great idea. We really, you know, think that maybe the society should do it. And so they actually, he said they discussed it at the board level, and the board said, well, we don't think there's enough content. Okay. But the truth was, first of all, the funny thing is, literally like 3 or 4 months after that, what was it called? Extreme Makeover, I think. It was like one of the first shows in 2000 to come out. You know, obviously content in plastic surgery was never a problem, because my friend and I that actually had the idea, we were saying every time you go to dinner with somebody, they're like, what'd you do today? I just went to the emergency room and sewed up a laceration. They're like, well, tell me about that. No, it's kind of boring. Like, no, tell me. They're just fixated on just the most mundane thing. So we're like, content, we have tons of content. But, you know, things evolved, and 10 years later, because of the internet and the digital age, it became much more feasible to start an internet-based channel, and that's what we did. And it was about doing high-end doctor-delivered video messaging that allowed surgeons at the time, when we were working with surgeons, allowing surgeons to connect with their community and the patients. It's always good to be lucky. I think we were lucky in the sense that we rode kind of in at a time when video, internet-based video is king. I mean, nobody wants to read anything. Video is so important. It's your #1 digital asset that you have as really any kind of business, and there's incredible, you know, data on it. So we basically launched this channel on, you know, it's in plastic surgery, but it's really allowing people to utilize our services to connect with their community and patients. And it's just it's crazy, you know. It's how wildly popular video has become in our era.
Well, let's switch gears for a bit because as part of my intro, I mentioned that you're the number one rated plastic surgeon in, breast aesthetics, breast augmentation by Newsweek. I mean, how do you become number one? I imagine that video, digital marketing has to play a big role in your handshake with patients.
Yeah, I mean, when you think about your Digital Handshake, the name of this podcast, it's about what your kind of digital perception is out there on the internet, wherever, where people, because now people, it's so different than it was 20 years ago. People are researching, they're finding people all over the place, and it's crazy how people actually run across or find you in sites you've never heard of, or because it's your digital handshake is everywhere,
Right.
and so, yeah, I mean, for me, it's a lot more than having a couple videos. I can tell you that. I mean, for me, I think the whole Newsweek thing, which I'm honored to be a recipient of for 5 years in a row, but I mean, a lot of that comes with a lot of blood, sweat, and tears. Honestly,
Hmm.
it's a lot of hard work. Really becoming not only a content expert, but writing papers, doing research, treating patients, developing techniques, doing more research, publishing papers, being an educator. I mean, I'm out on the road educating at meetings over 3 months a year, which is
Right.
crazy for most plastic surgeons. Most people, that doesn't mean I'm smart. It actually means I'm probably stupid because honestly, because it's really that really. I mean, you're just 3 months a year. You're not operating. That's all. That's how we make put food on the table.
So let's think. I mean, obviously, you've got a lot of happy patients in order to be recognized by a tremendous publication like Newsweek. But I got to imagine there's that one high maintenance patient, that one patient that you probably in hindsight say, I probably should have not agreed to do that procedure or that case. Have you ever had to manage through a negative review or a challenging patient that was difficult in terms of your reputation, perhaps online?
Yeah, 100%. And that actually is really. I think that's just the way of life
Right.
these days. In the digital era, so, again, so much easier. Before, let's say, before the whole digital age, we patients, if they were unhappy, they could. There was no reviews, right?
Right.
They could complain to you. You could, be sued, or you could be. I think you could still report people to the board 20 years ago,
Right.
but now, I mean, you just like they. It's like 5 seconds after they can fire off 10 different social media posts. So it's a completely different era. But yeah, I think all of us have dealt with multiple instances of bad patients who were not happy, and even through your career, you learn how to identify those patients sometimes easier, but there's not a foolproof formula because it's just about, for whatever reason, there's always situations where the patient may have a great result, but they're just not happy. At the end of the day, we're in a customer service specialty,
Right.
and it's about giving people and producing results that they want, that they're paying you for. And so, just like anything, if you go to McDonald's, even though there's no real problem with the French fries, you may not like them. Same thing in our specialty; it's just more complex. And
Right.
so, yeah, it's tough. And I think, again, this whole concept of the digital handshake, your digital imprint, the stronger that is, the better you can deal with these things. Because you know, somebody told me one time, we're all a little bit weird creatures because we don't like when somebody's unhappy.
Right.
It's not what we want. To be kind of feel like we didn't fulfill our patient's desires or the outcome that they wanted, or if you have a complication. So it really affects, I think, surgeons a lot.
Yeah.
And it's funny because if you're a baseball player, if one out of every or three out of every 10 times you get a hit, you're considered like one of the greatest hitters in the league. We have to bat near 1,000%. We have to get hit 10 out of 10 times, or else you're considered rubbish.
Right.
So we're held to a very high standard, and so having that proper digital identity online is great, and it's great for dealing with problems, but it's also great for I can't tell you how many patients have come in to say, hey, I watched all your videos and I feel like I already know you. And that's
Yeah.
so powerful because that is what you want. Not only is it better because just like if you go meet somebody, you may or may not connect with them. You might say they're a nice person, but I'm probably not going to go hang out with them on weekends. Or you may meet somebody you really connect with. Same thing with your digital presence. Your patients are looking at this. They're getting to know you on your videos. And some patients may not connect with you,
Right.
and at the end of that day, that relationship's probably never going to be fruitful.
Right. And what's interesting is kind of the old adage, right? So you go to a good restaurant, you tell 2 or 3 of your friends, right? But for whatever reason, you have a bad experience, you go to a bad restaurant, right? You're
That's
telling
right.
everybody. You're telling 10, 12,
Yeah.
whoever will listen,
Yeah.
right? So, and I think that's the world we live in where it's such a review-driven economy.
Yeah.
And so, managing your digital identity, managing your digital footprint, managing your digital handshake,
Right.
right? That initial impression is so critical to success, especially for a thriving plastic surgery practice. Talking about digital marketing, if I was to just magically find an extra $5,000 a month in your practice budget that you could allocate towards digital marketing, where would you put it? Where do you think is the best bang for your buck in helping to kind of create that visibility, that access, that potential conversion of your target audience, patients, through digital marketing?
Yeah, I mean, I think that video is king because it can be repurposed for social media. It can be on websites. It can be on direct kind of patient emailing blast campaigns. But it depends. It probably depends a little bit. So if you don't have tons of video, good high end video is essential, probably first priority. Now, let's say you already have some good video. There's other things like we're doing a podcast. That's a different type of video. It's also audio, but that's another potential way to connect with patients. But yeah, I mean, so to answer your question, it's like some sort of digital asset,
Yeah.
because it's about creating your best digital presence. And so whatever that is, I think the beauty of videos, again, it can be turned into any subtype of digital asset that you want. But it is what people want to do. They
Right.
just don't, we're at an era now, people don't want to read.
Right.
They want to look at stuff. And you can basically take that. It's like taking a lemon and squeezing all the juice out of the lemon. So you don't just cut in half and use half the lemon and throw the rest away. You're going to use it for different things, and repurpose it will give you multiple assets.
Right. Right. 100% agree. In addition to video, and you mentioned podcasting, you're the founder of Media PSC, you're a very successful plastic surgeon, global thought leader, educator. You've got one of the hottest YouTube channels out there with Hey Doc and now TBH. Put your marketing hat on, if you will, for your fellow plastic surgeons and looking out into the future. What's the new trend? What's the new investment? Where should, if I'm a emerging younger plastic surgeon looking to allocate some digital marketing dollars besides video, what's the future? Where should I be placing some investments and some bets?
I'm going to answer that question in a roundabout way, but I think that the paradigm of kind of gimmick influencers, say, or just create, you'll see people that have presence because they do, I don't want to name any specific names, but like Dr. Dallas or whatever,
Right.
whatever it is. But sometimes they're filming surgeries and it's kind of gimmicky.
Yeah.
I think that we're emerging. We're kind of getting in the air of more expertise. I think patients want to see less of the gimmicky, crazy stuff, and they want to see legitimate um, information from experts. And so, if I was going to pursue something, I would probably try to stay away from. I think the mistake is if you think you're just going to get your iPhone and you're going to film a few social media clips that are crazy. It's okay, that has a place. It's not your sole brand. It's more of a complementary way to use certain assets to maybe reach different patient population or additional patients. But I think I would look at some vehicle to showcase your expertise, whether it's a podcast, whether it's YouTube again has been. There's a lot of stuff with like shadow banning that people talk about, and where people still talk about Instagram is becoming harder and harder for plastic surgeons to grow presence because Instagram doesn't really I don't know why they don't like plastic surgery, but they apparently don't. But YouTube is a great venue. So if I would say YouTube is, although it's wildly popular now, I think if you're not on YouTube, then there's some real benefits to that. But I think focusing less on kind of bits and gimmicks and real expert information, because people will find you in the craziest places,
Right. So we're going to play a little, kind of have some fun here as we wrap up here on the digital handshake. Both you and I know, quite a few plastic surgeons, right? So the question I want to leave you with is, we're at a dinner party and you have an opportunity to create the invitation list. Who are your 3 plastic surgery colleagues that you're inviting and say, you know what, they'd be fun to have dinner with?
3.
3. You only get 3. Doesn't have to be your favorite. Just someone you want to have a nice meal with, perhaps a glass of wine.
You always go to people that are your people you respect highly and have learned a lot from. So I will say
They could be living or dead.
Yeah. No, I hear you. That I would pick Lou Bucky, who's a colleague of mine that I've known for many, many years. Actually, kind of met him around the time when you and I met.
Yeah.
And then Steve Antrobus is a guy I trained with in plastic surgery. Been a phenomenal plastic surgeon and kind of skin. He does skin cancer reconstruction now. And then the last one's tough. I mean, it's I would probably. I wish he said I had to have 10 people. It'd be a lot easier. I think I'm going to go with Rod.
Yeah.
Rod Rourke, because Rod really is the guy. I feel like a lot of people influence your career, but I think he had the biggest influence when I started my general surgery and plastic surgery at UT Southwestern. He was the guy that made me into much of the work ethic and things that I have today, and so yeah, I mean, as you know, Rod, we see a lot of Rod. And then, maybe another dinner party, I'll invite 3 others, but that would be a great full throttle dinner.
Well, it's interesting you picked those 3 individuals. So co-founded Patient Fi with Lou. I've known Lou for just as long as you, and he was the chairman of the executive council when I was at Allergan. Steve Antrobus is a board member here at Media PSC, so I know Steve very, very well. Served on the board for, going on 15 years now. And then Rod, Rod's a board member as well, and he's a significant investor with us. And I've known Rod for many, many years, being, past president at ASPS and the editor of the journal. It's a great list.
Yeah.
That's a great dinner.
Yeah.
So with that, we want to wrap up and thank you for joining us here on the Digital Handshake.